Darrin, are you on that committee that's trying to look at the new kickoff rule?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I am. We're in the process right now of trying to come up with some alternatives for that play a little bit. There's been a lot of press about what the expectations are, and there's a lot of different things being discussed right now. I don't want to get into a big lot of it, but it's obviously something's got to change, right? I think there's 22% of the kicks last year return, which is like the lowest in modern history. It's down from 38% the year before that. I don't think that the fair catch is what affected that. I think there's a lot deeper kicks this year. There are more balls that were hit through the back of the end zone. I think there are 92 fair catches on the season. So that's not the whole reason there's a reduction in the number of returns. I think guys are just more afraid to put the ball in play more for the risk of concussions. The concussion number, it got what the league wanted. I mean, the concussion number was way down. But, I think the excitement and the purpose of the play was really taken out by that rule. So, I feel like there's a common ground we got to come to here over the course of the coming weeks to get the thing figured out and make it a big part of the game, because it's an exciting play in the game. We got to make it more exciting. We've taken it out, so hopefully we can get something figured out here.
What about the onside kick part of it?
Which part of it? What are you asking about?
Do you think that there's things that the league can still do to make that play relevant?
Yeah, I think so. We changed the rule. We went from a maximum number of players in the setup zone. We reduced that by one from 10 to 9. It bumped up the percentage a little bit, probably not enough. So there are other things that are on the table right now, I think, that we're talking about. Do you reduce that number by 1 again? Do you allow overloads? There's a lot of moving parts that figure into that. There's a lot of consequences for you do one action and this reaction happens. So there's a lot of things we're trying to work through with that. But I think it can be help some.
When would you guys have a full proposal forward?
When will we?
Yeah. Is there a date?
I don't have a time. I've not heard a date that they need to have it by. I would think the sooner the better, to allow not only the coaches to prepare, but, I think it affects free agency too. I think it affects how you could, put your team together in unrestricted free agency, and then certainly in the draft. I think there's probably been a little less emphasis put on some of these guys, some of these core special teams players, and what there's been in the past. Believe me, it's very difficult for me as a coach when I have players like Marcus Bailey, Keem Davis-Gaither, who are unrestricted free agents, who have a chance of production. The one way that they try to make money or get better contracts themselves is through production. And we get touchbacks all the time. That takes that out of that. So it's a very difficult thing, for me to have to deal with as a coach too. But there's been no firm date, but hopefully the sooner the better.
Is there a kickoff proposal you like?
Man, that's a loaded question. I'm studying a lot of it right now. I think there's going to have to be some give and take. I'm all for making the game safer, but I'm all for not taking the foundation of the game away. And I feel like that's kind of what we've been moving towards for, in the effort for safety. But yet I think we've maybe, I don't know if I can say we've overshot that a little bit, but the concussion numbers were way down. But like I said, again, it's been at the result of almost taking the play away. So like I said, there's a couple alternatives we're trying to work through. There's one alternative everybody has talked about, if you want to call it the quote-unquote the XFL rule. There's a lot of holes in that right now with the way that that league did it. There's been much ado been made about this. UFL is not going to use that rule, so why would we do it as the NFL? I think there's a lot of information we're still trying to gather. There's injury data from both leagues, from both the XFL and the USFL. I think the UFL is going to adopt what the USFL did and kick off from the 20-yard line. So they're in fact backing it up. They're creating more plays. I think the league has always been in favor of scoring, and I think the scoring production has been down a little bit the last 2 years. Incrementally, very incrementally. I think they always want to see it go up because they like excitement and they like scoring and like points. And yet I think drive starts have backed up a little bit. And I think a big part of that's been a result of this kickoff play. And I think if we can get that drive start move back up a little bit, closer to what even what the XFL was. The XFL, the average drive start was the 28-yard line after kickoff. Ours hasn't been that for several years, again, because of the touchback. and the ease of hitting touchback. So if you went to the USFL, that, I mean, the drive start would certainly increase by a lot, but I don't know if that's quite what we want to get to. So again, there's, like I said, there's a lot being talked about right now.
How do you assess the punter position and what kind of year after evaluating Brad do you think he had?
You're assessing, I mean, our punter position?
Yeah.
You know, I think there's certainly a lot of room for improvement for sure. You know, he got up to about as rough a start as you could possibly get into. We were playing in the opener in Cleveland. He punts 11 times. It's in the rain. And it's a difficult place to punt in the first place. So, I mean, he got off to as bad as, you know, historically about the worst start you possibly could. I think he evolved some. I certainly think there's still a lot of meat left on the bone for him. You know, if you go back and look statistically where his rookie year was in comparison, like what Kevin Huber's was, it's still better. You know, and so I think I don't want to overreact here. I think that's part of my job is to help develop him and make him better. And so I think he can do that. I think he has the right mindset. He's very open to him, you know, things that we bring up and techniques we might want to change a little bit to help that production. But it's certainly an area we got to get better at quick.
Why do you think there is an adjustment from college to NFL, or is there one for a guy like that?
Well, I think it's because the rules in college football are so much different, you know, especially for the punt play. On the punt play, everybody can release on the snap. So coverage gets down the field much faster, and there's not nearly the same rate of return on conventional punts that are caught in the air in college football is in the NFL. There's a lot more fair catches. There are a lot more balls that hit the ground, frankly, because the returner can't get to it or the coverage is on top of them. So I think that's a big thing. Even when you look at even Brad statistically, I mean, he had a better statistical average last year than he did his senior year at Michigan. So I'm pretty sure that's correct. And we're asking him to do a few different things and maybe what he did at Michigan too, attempting a few different punts. Some of it's predicated on field position or situations in the game. You know, I mean, he was a part of a very good team in Michigan that didn't punt a whole lot, you know, as a senior too. So, and when they did, a lot of them were plus 50 punts, and I think that affects his average. So, I think it's going to be an evolution for him. I have a good feeling about him. You know, I feel that he's in a good spot mentally. I think it was good for him for the season to be over and he can get away from it and take a break. You got to remember, I mean, he goes from his senior season, which was all the way, you know, up through the college playoff last year, and then he's getting through draft preparation, all the pro days, the combine. Then he goes right into OTAs, right into training camp to a full season. So he didn't have any downtime really at all last year. So I told him he needs to get away from it. He's let his leg rest, his mind rest, his body rest, and then let's get back to work here before too long.
Competition for him?
Yeah, I would like to think that. Yeah, I mean, you know, anytime you have competition, there, you know, I think it brings out the best. That's the little cliche thing, but yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, we've gone down the road with punters now 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Is there something to be said for a veteran presence in that competition that's more of a known quantity rather than another developmental deal?
Well, I think that it depends. There's a lot of factors that go into that too. There's a salary cap that we have to deal with, and you know, sometimes we don't. In other years, we haven't had as much room to do that, and or you have a potential for some savings there by going with the younger route if they have a chance to develop. I mean, it's easy to always say, yeah, there's a veteran player that's available, and that's easy for me to say too. But sometimes that's not always feasible for our team. What's best for our team. So, you know, I don't know if that's where we're going to put some of our free agent or salary cap capital into a veteran player that way. I don't know if that's out of the mix by any stretch of the imagination. There's some guys out there who are potentially going to be available that are very interesting that could certainly help us. I think it's just got to be an organizational decision on where we want to move that money to.
If Charlie slides into that TV role as the slot guy, can he still return kicks?
I think for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it's that's something he can absolutely still do.
There's not a max number of snaps that he gets to where you're like, oh, we need to save him.
No, hell, he's a second-year player, so I mean, he's got a lot of gas in the tank for him, and so no, I think he could certainly still handle all that.
Is he the kick returner in your mind right now? I know he was
the punt returner.
Yeah, punt returner.
Well, I think it depends on what the rules are.
Yeah.
You know, I think that affects a lot. You know, you could be looking for a couple different body types. You know, I think if we go to an XFL model where the space is a little less than what historically that play is looking like, maybe you want more of a punt return type body that's a quick change of direction guy as opposed to somebody who's running through space and running through tackles, looking for a more big physical guy. So again, I think these rules have to get figured out before we can make some of those determinations.
Who was the best rookie on special teams last year for you?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Who was the best rookie on special teams for you last year?
I think we had a couple guys that had production. That means, if you want to count Tyson Anderson into that, I would think that Tyson figures into that into a way because it's a rookie year of playing. I thought he was spectacular in the games that he played. Like he played in 7 games, maybe. I thought he was spectacular. But he did that through preparation through that year that he missed, on IR. Mike Thomas did a fantastic job of helping bring him along. Tyson was in every meeting, a year ago, so he wasn't exactly a rookie in terms of his mindset, and he had some vast knowledge he gained just from being a part of our program for a year. But in his rookie year of playing, I thought he was really good, especially in coverage. We changed positions for him. He became a gunner, and I thought he was about as good as any gunner in the league in the games that he played. I think Chase Brown kind of went through some ups and downs of injury, but when he played, I thought he was very effective. He played he's one of our best punt return hold-up guys because he has natural leverage. He's shorter. He's very strong. He plays a great effort. He's also one of our fastest guys, so I think there's a lot that he can do for us, whether it's on kickoff, whether it's on punt. I thought he played well. I thought Andre Yosevage played well. He had a bigger, he probably had the most play time of any rookie. Although DJ Ivey was coming into his own before he got hurt. I think he started off kind of slow, was inactive for a lot of games early, but in the games where he really started to come on, he really started to get things figured out, was playing well, unfortunately, before he got injured. So, those were, again, 4-ish guys, I think, that have a chance to be the foundation of our group going forward.
What kind of year did you think Evan had?
I thought it was solid. When you look at the overall field goal percentages of him compared to the rest of the league, sometimes it may be a little lower than what you would expect it to be. But we ask a lot of him. I think he's either first or second, maybe in the league, in most attempts over 50 yards over the last 2 years. So the difficulty of the kicks that he has to attempt is a little bit more than most. But yet we still feel very good about that. It's been such a mindset change for me since we've gotten him that, anytime we get the ball around the 40, I'm thinking we got a field goal coming, we got a field goal attempt. Or I don't even hesitate to put him out there in those situations. And that's I think that's kind of the evolution of the way this league is now. These kickers have such range. Anywhere from 55 to 60 yards is that's not anything that's out of the realm anymore. I thought his kickoffs were improved this year. I think as a rookie, I thought his kickoffs were okay. Then it developed a little bit more in his second year. Then I thought he kicked off really well for what I asked him to do this past year. When I asked him to put the ball in the end zone, he did for the most part. So I think he's improved with his kickoff play. But like I said again, I'm still very, very comfortable with him. I feel as confident with him in critical spots, in clutch field goals, game winners, field goals in the fourth quarter, as I have about anybody I've ever been around. So, like Jacksonville game, hit a couple huge field goals, one in towards the end of regulation, and then obviously the game winner in like the Minnesota game too. He's as good in the clutch as anybody I've ever been around.
And overall operation?
Yeah, the operation I thought was good too. I thought Brad did a very good job. That's one thing that's kind of seamless or sometimes forgot about when. Evans had a lot of change at those two positions over the last 2 years. From, his first 2 years, he's got the same cast, and all of a sudden, we lose Clark in the opener a year ago. Then we have to make a switch midway at punter and holder with Kevin going to Drew. And so we finished the year with Drew, and then all of a sudden we flipped that out again to start the year this year. So he's had several guys, 3 new guys in there, but yet he's remained steadfast. He has great trust in Cal. And Brad, and again, I thought both of those guys are a big part of his success too.
Just looking at the way Brad holds, I know it's just holding, he's more of a punter, but he seemed to be kind of an above average guy. Might have been the reason that McPherson got back into the fold.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you got to remember he did a good job. He held for a draftable player, a guy who played in the Super Bowl, Jake Moody, for several years there at Michigan. So he's been required to be a very effective holder anyway. I mean, really, in my mind, half of his job is punting and half of it's holding. Because you got to score points to win games, and if you can't execute on a field goal, you don't score points, you don't win the game. So I think half of his job is holding too. And I think he's done a good job, but I feel very comfortable with him doing that.
See, the Chiefs signed Araiza, but they already had a great kicker in Townsend. I mean, it's just the way the money gets up there with the quarterbacks. I mean, does that create some unease? Are you going to be able to keep Evan when that time comes?
I'm not sure what you're asking about. Townsend, you're asking about.
Well, just because they had a great punter, but they went and got another one, and I guess they're planning ahead where they can't afford to keep him. And
I don't know if they've got it. If they went and got another good one, I mean, Ariza's probably an unknown, but you run into the spot where they're already paying Harrison Bucker, and there's only so much to go around, and you got to start picking your spots where you put that money, and Harrison's a hell of a kicker. Tommy had a really good year in 22. He's a All-Pro in 2022. I think he was probably down a little bit this year, maybe from what he's been in the past. He's still spectacular. We're still talking about a top punt in the league. And I'm not in Kansas City. I don't know what their mindset is, but I'm sure they're protecting themselves a little bit in the event that they can't get Tommy re-signed. To at least have somebody on their roster. But I mean, you're talking about putting a guy on a team who's punted in one preseason game, I think, in Ariza. So, there's a lot of moving dynamics, and again, I don't know where Kansas City is going to look to put their money, but we'll have a plan in place whenever Evan's time comes. He's still under contract, so that's the good part for us. We don't have to deal with that right now.
And when you see all the coaches move around the NFL, take new jobs, obviously probably the biggest chance you've been here over 20 years. Does it make you appreciate the stability in Cincinnati?
Oh, it makes me. You have no idea how fortunate I feel to be in the same place for one time, especially for my family. I've stated this many times that, my daughter was 2, I think, when we moved to Cincinnati, and she's going to graduate from college this year. And we had another son when we were here, and he's a freshman in college. And I got a freshman in high school. So just the ability to keep them stable and in one place and see them mature and succeed at what they do has been worth it for me. Plus, I enjoy the organization. We've been through. I've rode the ebbs and flows of 3 or 4 quarterbacks and 3 or 4, tides of being good to struggling a little bit and then getting back to the top again. And it's once you get kind of the taste that we've had, in 21 and 22, and I know how close we are, and to be able to be a part of that is super important to me. It's amazing to, even though we have not had a lot of playoff success in the past, what we've done here since Zach's been here I think has been a huge uplift to not only our team but to the city. It's amazing to see the way our city feels, how close we are to, and the fans that we have, and the backing that we receive from them makes it super exciting for me too as a coach.
What's the biggest change you've seen in the since 03? What's been the biggest change in the combine?
In the combine since 03, wow. There's a lot. I mean, I always felt one of my biggest duties here in the past was to go to the weigh-ins, so it's your first chance to physically see these guys on the hoof and to get your first impression of those guys. And that's completely changed now. I haven't been to the weigh-ins in 2 years. There's only X amount of people that can go see that. It's much more guarded. There's a lot of rules, things that have changed that way. That's changed. The kicking workouts changed immensely. I've been a big part of that kicking workout now really almost since I've been here. That's changed. It's changed again, I think, for the better this year. We're inviting a lot more guys. It's not really quote unquote part of the NFS combine. It's going to be afterwards. So, but we're inviting more punters and kickers to that, which should open up, some exposure for some of these guys. That's changed a lot.
What changes did you advocate for that now is staples of the?
Well, we expanded it. We expanded kind of as the punting position and the way that play has evolved. We've changed a lot of the kicks that these guys do now, whether it's directional kicks, whether it's hitting end over end plus 50 kicks, or even now a lot of these guys have specialty kicks that they hit, meaning they show in direction and punt it the other way. and that was never a thing in the past. And now we allow these guys to do that. Kind of the same thing with the kicking workout. You know, as I stated before, the field goal portion of it, a 55 or 60-yard field goal, was never even a thought in the past, and that's where we'll end up. You know, this kicking workout is back at 60 yards, and I expect most of them to probably make it. Where I would have said in the past when I first got started in this thing, hell, they had no chance from 60. You know, and we kicked off from a 30-yard line. I could count the number of kickoffs in the end zone on one hand, you know, from the whole combine. Now it's almost a strike if you don't put it in the end zone from the 35. So these guys all have evolved so much physically, and you know, even through all this draft preparation stuff that these agents, you know, have these players do. I mean, guys are just getting bigger and stronger and faster, and I don't know where it ever stops.
Evolve over his time with you, and what did you see that made you feel like, I mean, this guy's ready to do this job?
Well, I think when Colt first started with us back in 2020, I mean, he had no real experience in coaching whatsoever. I think he coached a little bit after getting him playing. I think he dabbled in some business things. I think he coached a little bit his high school back in Montana, and he came very highly recommended to me. You know, obviously I knew him as a player. I didn't know him, but I had much respect for him as a player from the way that he played. And then we got the chance to get to know him a little bit through the interview process. Like, we're starting here at the bottom, ground zero, just from an experience standpoint. But you know, Colt was a really smart guy who understood football, worked really hard at it, and you know, I think he's going to do great at Tennessee. You know, my only comparison would be Braden was the guy before him, Braden Combs, and you know, when he got his opportunity in Detroit, he flourished in that spot too. And I think Colts will be in a very similar range or real similar spot, and I have a similar feeling about what he'll do is what Braden did in Detroit too. So, you know, I feel very confident he'll do fine in Tennessee. I think it's a good hire for Brian. You know, it's a good young coach who's excited for his next task. You know, I think everybody wants to be challenged, and I certainly think that there'll be things that he has to learn on the fly, like everybody does. Everybody's got to start somewhere, and there'll be the ups and downs, the ebbs and the flows. But he's a very intelligent guy who works his tail off, and it means a lot to him. He does well for players, and I think he'll do a great job there.
What do you lose? You know, you have to replace that. What's the biggest thing that you need to, you know, make sure you're finding replacement to accomplish?
I think it's fit. You know, I think it's finding the right guy, a guy who can relate to the players. And I think we've probably done that in hiring Ben Jacobs. I think there is something to be said in some instances for dealing with some former players, which is what we've done the last two times. That they have experience, they've been in that arena before, they know what it feels like, and I think that other players relate to that. You know, I'm not always say it's better, but it relates with ease sometimes. And yet at the same time, they've got to have Ben's been in the league for 5 years or 4 years as a coach, 5 years as a coach, but it's getting him up to speed with the way we want to do things, our terminology. And I have no doubt that we're going to be working together here, with both in the next couple minutes. We're getting going, we're getting flowing here. This is going to be a super busy time for us, just trying to learn our football here too. So I feel very confident and comfortable where he's at, excited to work with him.
What kind of player was